It's Wood's first introduction to CERAWeek as an industry partner. What's been your reflections over the past week?
7,500 people, a huge amount of excitement, a huge amount of positivity, a conversation that started about an orderly transition in the energy space. And as we went through the conference, it became less about an orderly transition, which sounded a little bit like business as usual, and became more about an extraordinary transition and how this needs to go at pace. This needs to happen now. It needs to be fast. It needs to be furious. And it's just going to unlock so much more opportunity for us in Wood. I think what was great about it was when you looked at all of the various different end markets, you looked at where people are going to invest. You looked at the solutions that are out there. You cross-referenced that with the strategy that we unveiled last year, and we are in all the right markets, in all the right sectors, with all the right expertise to absolutely be able to shine. So just a real positive reinforcement of the direction that we're going on, and it was actually really impressive.
Yeah, I can sense the confidence in some of the things that I've been hearing. I do really feel like it puts Wood in a position to leverage the strategy that it launched last year. It sounds to me, as you said, fast and furious. We need to get out of cruise control. We need to scale. So, what's next after this conference? Obviously, you've got huge confidence in our strategy, but what comes next? How do we get that action going?
Yeah, so I think if you look through kind of the history and maybe put this with the lens of energy transition, so what is really apparent now is that we have got energy security and we're going to continue to invest in energy security, and we have got energy transition. So now you have policy starting to come behind energy transition. So think of the IRA here in the US, which is going to accelerate investment into various different bits and pieces. So I think the policy piece is there, which has got the subsidy piece, which is getting the capital piece, which is getting people excited about that. I think the next piece then becomes around being able to come up with the solutions and take the technical solutions that are out there, adapt, and make sure that we can get them to scale at a pace that's going to be able to get us that accelerated momentum on the journey to net zero. So I think that's the piece that you come away from it. You kind of go, this journey to net zero that we're on, the technology that's going to help us get there, a lot of it exists today. But we need to make sure that we can get it to scale. We need to make sure that we need to optimize it. We need to make sure that we get better at doing it, that we can actually drive the cost of implementation continuously down as we're driving it to scale. But then at the same time, that journey to net zero is also going to require technologies that don't exist today. So we're going to need to continue to innovate. So I think in a Wood perspective, it means, that curiosity that we have, that ability to be the system integrator, that ability to think broad, to stay close to what's out there, understand how you take those solutions and get them into pragmatic, scalable, pragmatic solutions that are actually going to change the dynamic of what's happening to net zero. That's going to continue to be really important for us. And I think what you're going to see, it's going to be a little bit like our strategy. Our strategy is going to be built on kind of proof points, creating momentum, continuing to do it one step at a time, and continue to be relentless and consistent. And I think the parallel in the biggest industries that we serve in the energy space is going to be similar to that. It's going to be about relentless. It's going to be about being curious. It's about continuing to push the boundaries and being brave. And I think that's the really interesting piece for us. The other thing, as almost as an aside to that is kind of coming away from this, is when you talk about energy, a lot of conversations about materials.
I was going to ask you about that, because there seemed to be a major focus with this CERAWeek on mining, which was, way more than last year. So, what does that tell you?
I think what it tells you is that the conversation is becoming a little bit maturer. I think it's becoming a little bit more clear, and it's becoming a little bit more pragmatic. So there's an understanding that this journey to net zero is going to require these minerals. And to take these minerals and to get these minerals is going to require investment, right? So I think there's an underlying piece that kind of also parlays into where we are. Like the number of times people have asked us about minerals as opposed to what was actually happening in energy transition and energy security was as you said, I was quite surprised with that, but it just underpins again, we're in the right place in the right markets at the right time.
100%.
The bit that crosses all of it though, and this was the thing, I think you've probably noticed it, was the other two cross-cutting pieces that we have. Because all of the conversation started and ended with decarbonization and carbon intensity. And then all of our peers, a lot of our competitors, a lot of our clients are talking about that roadmap going through digitization. And how do we become better at digitization? And how does digitization become real and pragmatic? And what does that mean? And how is that going to help us on that journey to net zero? So you kind of came away, I mean, the hairs were standing up on the back of my arm. It was what I loved when I was on stage. So, and we were going through the various different technologies and who's going to win on the journey to net zero. And the answer was, we don't know, right? There's going to be a whole variety of stuff. But it was Hege from Equinor when she was on stage and she was going through all the challenges. And she said, you know, the biggest single gap that we have now is we need companies that are going to be the system integrators, that are going to be able to plot that path to where it is. And that was where I was like, oh. And she was looking at me and she was looking at us from Wood, and you were, okay, our clients understand the value of what it is that we need to do. And they understand that we're also going to need to play a bigger part to help them in their journey. So it's fantastic.
No, it's incredible because I guess, you know, we're part of an industry that develops quite a lot of buzzwords, and sometimes you have to kind of cut through that and address what that actually means. So, you know, decarb, digital, systems integrator, you know, what is the true value that Wood brings?
The true value that Wood brings is that our people can navigate the complexity of what is probably the biggest challenge that the world has faced, which is that journey to net zero, and can navigate through that complexity to get to solutions that are going to make the difference. That's what we do. That's what our people do. That's that curiosity. That's that brilliance. That's their ability to do that. And I think we just need to continue on that path. We're there. We're recognized. We're known. Just keep doing more of it.
And just touching on being known, as well as attending sessions and obviously being part of one, you met with quite a number of media this week. So I'm just curious to understand, what were the questions they were asking you? What were they really interested in? You know, what made Wood stand out to them?
I think that the commonality on the questions around Wood was honestly getting to know Wood. It was honestly them getting to understand what it is that we do. I think there's probably a piece, particularly from a media standpoint, is that a lot of them aren't close enough to the industry to really understand the complexity of what it is that we do. So a lot of this about those clients was getting them to understand the part that we play. Yeah. And the more they understood the part that we play, and then cross-check that back to the clients, then it became, oh. I mean, the one journalist was like, you've got 3,000 people here in Houston. You've got 35,000 people across the world. You're working in where, and how do you do this? And so I think it was that sense of them from a journalistic standpoint, putting those pieces together. I think that was really important. A lot of conversation, you know, from a journalistic standpoint, they're trying to get behind what they hear on stage. They're trying to see what's the real, cut through the noise, cut through the let's just say the prepared remarks that you may hear in some places and areas, and what's the real story behind that. And well, it's not just the proofs. It's what are the concerns? What aren't people telling us? Yeah. What are we worried about? What are the risks associated with that? So they're trying to get to that, and they're looking for people to be able to be credible, be honest, and be transparent in that in order to help the narrative. And I think when you that's probably some of the beauty of these conferences as well. It's not the media engagement. It's almost less about the on-stage stuff. It's the sidebar conversations that you have with your peers. Like, I've met a whole series of CEOs this week. And you start talking about, well, what are you worried about? And what are they worried about? And I think when you look at our competitors, and when we're talking to our competitors, they're worried about being able to actually have the the people to be able to go after this huge, massive challenge. Where are we going to get the people from? Where are we going to get the skills from? How do we stay focused and selective in terms of what we're doing, right, to make sure that we're doing as much as we can? And that's the actual starting point for our strategy as well, is get back to what we're good at, what are we differentiate, and be selective and be focused.
Where are we going to deploy our
disciplined.
talent? Where does it really matter? Where is it going to pay off?
Where's it going to pay off? Where is it going to provide the best benefit to the world on the journey to net zero? And where it's going to provide the best benefit to the world on the journey to net zero is where it's most complex, because that's where we shine. So it's those kind of conversations are really interesting in the sidebar pieces. So that's on the kind of our kind of peer group and our competitors. From a client standpoint, they're a little bit worried about their return on investment. How quickly are they going to get the return on the investment? And are we sure that we're going to really select the best technologies, the ones that are going to be the most predictable, the most reliable, that have the best efficiency on this journey to net zero, as well as that in reducing carbon intensity? So I think that's the parallel piece that's really interesting about it. So I think it's good. So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
All right, so what was your biggest takeaways from the week? Well, let me ask you it a different way.
Okay.
What was your expectation coming in? And then what was different, or what was new, what was exciting, what was your takeaways?
So I think, you hear about Zero Week, and you do have this, impression it's the most important event, in the industry's calendar. You have all the movers and shakers of policy, of company, of startups. And so, you kind of come in and you've got that impression that you're going to be really impressed. And you know what, I really was. So it did live up to that expectation. I guess, what I have enjoyed seeing is just the diversity of people attending this. So I think in order to really get anywhere, to accelerate, to take action, we have to have that diversity of, looking at the operator, looking at to the startup, where's that new technology going to come? Who are we going to partner with? Where's that diverse thought coming from that will push us to the next frontier of energy and what that looks like and beyond net zero? So I guess, for me, I was looking to be impressed, and I was. So I guess that's my biggest takeaway, is that, there's people here that, as you say, they're concerned, but they want to do something about it. So I think now it's about, okay, what do we do next? How do we take what's happened here and push that forward?
And are you coming away with a sense of excitement?
I am. Do you know what? I had even more excitement when I started to correlate everything that I was seeing and hearing in the room with our strategy, and seeing how positioned we are, particularly around, the mining piece. And just because that's just going to be such a pivotal part of achieving the energy transition. And to be honest, we've kind of lagged in our focus on that area in particular. And then it's been great kind of learning more about hydrogen and carbon capture, and how we're going to, maybe not only build new infrastructure, but link it in a more holistic view. So, thinking about that master plan for energy systems. So, it's been very interesting. And I'm excited about what's to come. I think we've just got a lot to get after, and that's not a bad thing.
Our extraordinary transition. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have enjoyed this session. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the box below for Ken.